One of the things that people who've been trafficked talk about is that they are brought into what is called the game. So there's a whole different cult in language and in cultural aspect to the trafficking world.
I think the biggest obstacle we face is fear. They know our legal system. They're involved with bad people. They're involved with the criminal element on a daily basis.
Unfortunately, my daughter, Angel, had a car accident, slammed into a tree, broke both of her legs. She got addicted to fentanyl. And so she ended up tying up with all the people on the streets, the sex trafficking. Her ankles were cut, so she couldn't leave the room or go to the police. You know, the stories she told me that happened out there and to people she knows is horrific. Sorry, I'm getting emotional, but, and I've ran into at least 6 other women who have, and they're like a shell now. Maybe they've gotten away from it, but they're traumatized for the rest of their life.
And it almost becomes sort of a secondary community for them. So remembering that these are people who are likely less connected, they've created a wonderful new opportunity, and I say that with quite a sarcastic slant to that, to be part of something. So they adopt their own language, their own support networks. So somebody will talk about being out on the streets and they have the wifey who's in charge, and the wifey makes sure that all the girls are okay. They have a lookout system that makes sure that there are no police, or if there's a risky John, how to stay safe. They have specific language to how much money they charge. So a bill, for example, is $100. They have a different system in terms of punitive systems. So they need approval for their dress. They need approval for the shoes they wear. They need approval for the color of nail polish. If they don't have the right dress, if they don't have the right shoes, or if they don't have the right nail polish, they'll get fined. If they keep money from the pimp, they are responsible for those dollars, and if they don't produce them, they're beaten. So it may have started off with what they think is somebody who cares about them, and turns into sort of a whole new world of a gang business-like situation. But then it can also result in a lot of violence.
It's a tough lifestyle to get out of because of the money that they do see. You'll have victims that get back into the sex trade and they're working independently, and then they might be victimized again by another trafficker. It's really a vicious cycle, and it's difficult to get to that point.
And an inability to get out. We've heard that it takes up to maybe $15,000 to get out. And there's no way somebody who is being trafficked is going to have $15,000. They don't have access to the money they make. The pimp takes everything. Everything's about the economic value of trafficking and the economic value that that individual can bring. So as a result, their ability to escape is not likely. The pimp will say, sure, you can get out. It's going to cost you $15,000, but then you get fined for something else, and then you get fined for that. So there's always a level of manipulation because you are a commodity, and that person, regardless of your value, is making money off of you. Obviously, the younger you are, the more value you have. As you get older, and if you're involved in drugs, generally provided by the pimp, you lose more value, but you still are bringing income. So as a commodity, they are not going to try and get rid of you. However, if you risk the exposure of this game, then you are at risk. And as a result, it is punitive. And some people have said they have had friends in the business lose their lives because they've told or they tried to escape.
So I had a young person who came to me, I think it was through the hospital was the referral and the initial call I got. She was going to high school. She had a part-time job. She was living with a single mother, but very comfortably and fine. And out at the mall one day, she met a couple of older gentlemen. She got to know them during one evening out and about, and they invited her to a party for the weekend. And she thought, oh, why not? I'll go to this party. This guy's cute. It'll be fun. We'll see how it goes. And at that party, she drank, she used a little bit of drugs and things like that, and had a great Saturday night. Stayed the night there and went home on Sunday. On Monday, she was texting with one of the other guys that were there, and they said, "Hey, you owe us some money from the drinking and the drugs that we used and had a lot of fun, and you stayed the night." And she said, "Well, I don't have any money to give you." And he said, "Well, come next weekend and we can figure it out." So they texted throughout the week. She thought this guy liked her. Maybe they were getting into a relationship. And she went back that following weekend. And he said, "Well, if you perform this sex act, he'll pay me some of the money that you owe me from last weekend." And she thought, why not? I'll do it. I want to be cool. This is okay. I had a lot of fun last weekend. And after a little bit of pressure, she agreed to do this. And it happened a couple of more times that weekend because she owed quite a bit of money, according to this guy. Following the weekend, she was scared. She was upset with what happened. And she thought, okay, well, I'm done. I don't have this debt. But the guy videotaped some of the things that she was doing and then threatened to send that to her mom and to her friends at school if she didn't return the following weekend. So throughout the week, they would text back and forth. And she thought, well, this isn't turning out the way that I wanted it to, but these videos can't get out. And the following weekend, she returned to that same house and was forced to perform sex acts on multiple men throughout the entire weekend. And eventually she went to the hospital because she wasn't feeling well. She thought she might be pregnant, and there was some STDs, I think, that she contracted. And she told one of the nurses there what had actually happened. And that nurse made the call to us. And we went out and met this young person and talked about the exit strategy and how she was going, because she was very fearful that these videos were going to get out. We did some counseling, connected her with some resources, helped reestablish a relationship with her mom about what had happened, and then the rebuild began.
Anyone can be lured into the sex trade for lots of different reasons. There's a big, misnomer that it's not happening here. It is happening. Young men, young women, the LGBTQ plus community are being lured for lots of different reasons. Oftentimes, the trafficker, who is a master manipulator, looks to exploit a vulnerability. It could be I have lack of safe housing. If I'm experiencing violence in my home, I will look for a place to be safe. I could have an addiction that I can't sustain. I may be looking for love, looking for a sense of belonging, looking for an adventure. And when I meet this master manipulator, they treat me unlike anything I've ever been treated before. I am going to be the most special person to them. Like, no one has ever paid that much attention to me. And so this deep connection forms. And this could be romantic or it could be friendship.
They're so lost that they want to feel part of, they want to be loved. And then they don't realize that the people that are showing them love is a toxic love, and all they want is basically their bodies. They want to use them. They don't want to love them. They want to use them. They want to hurt them. And when you're so lost, myself included, I was lost in this life, and you just want to feel part of.
So, when we talk about sex trafficking, some of the vulnerabilities that people are experiencing and that we see is living in poverty, especially because I work with the younger population. I talk about the sense of adventure and the risky lifestyle. So, we're seeing more and more middle class young people becoming a victim of human trafficking in the form of sex trafficking because of that sense of adventure and the promise of a certain lifestyle. So, it's not like it is in the movies or in music videos, living that dream. It doesn't happen here in Windsor. So that's some of the vulnerabilities that we're seeing, as well as leaving an abusive situation. Um, Promise of the lifestyle, like I said, as well as through some addiction and older people preying on younger people.
They've been treated very poorly. They often develop mental health issues from the way they're treated. They're oftentimes addicted to drugs. So there's many barriers to get between Between the first initial contact with the police and an appearance in court, there's many barriers that we encounter to try and get that victim help and get her to actually attend court. And more often than not, they don't end up following through with the legal system and seeing the end of the case.
And as this relationship forms, I am slowly isolated from the people who were previously in my life, the supports. There's a systematic cutting out of friends, family, teachers, coaches, so that I am now completely reliant on this other person for everything, emotional support, housing, food, clothing. I'm completely dependent. And this relationship feels safe.
There's another young person that comes to mind that I have worked with over a number of years, and she is a child from Children's Aid Society. She was made a Crown Ward at a young age, in and out of foster care and group homes. And she came to me from a CAS worker. So she was, I believe, 16 when she came to me, and the CAS worker suspected that she was a victim of human trafficking. And it's because she had a designer handbag, she always had her nails done and her hair done, and thought, you don't have any money or a job, so how is she affording these things? So some of those signs that we spoke about. And so she brought this young person into my office with her, and we decided to have a conversation. And I said, your hair is always done and your nails are done, and how are you affording this? Well, someone gives me money. And so I met with this young person over a couple of weeks, and it ended up coming out that she was being trafficked. And I said, why do you keep going back to him? And she said, well, he loves me and holds me at night. And it's something she's never felt in her life. It came out that initially it was a brother and her mom and sister introduced her to this trafficker and were paid an amount of money because she was a child of the society but still had a relationship with her family. They paid her them some money, and he ended up taking her and then became somewhat of a boyfriend and protector for her, something she's never felt in her life, but then forced her to do multiple sex acts with many other people, would post her photo online to set up dates, was in charge of all of that. And over a year, we continued to talk about an exit strategy for her, but she was so scared.
I think in order for there to be hope, we have to create a society that is welcoming. One of the biggest hurdles that anyone who's trafficked experiences is that there's a lack of understanding of sexual exploitation. And primarily, they see the person as someone who's prostituting, maybe somebody who's drug addicted, a homeless person, and they don't recognize that they were lured, tricked, bribed, manipulated into becoming this victim of sexual exploitation. Until, as a society, we recognize that what seems to be prostitution or basically a sexual industry, that its roots are really sexual exploitation. And we have to create an opportunity that will sustain anyone who's trying to get out.
They fear that if they complain to the police, okay, the trafficker gets arrested. But in Canada, they're aware that nobody gets held in custody. So they fear that at some point, that trafficker is going to be back out on the street and they're a violent, bad person. What are they going to do next? This goes on in every country in the world, and there's not one country in the world that's come up with a solution to it.